Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms.
Hi. I want us to talk today about something that's like so sad and heinous that I almost don't even have the words for it. A couple of weeks ago, a mother and grandmother in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, were indicted in the death of the mother's 4-year-old. And I'm going to just read the stories. This is from a CNN report, and there were other things, but I want to make sure before we talk a little bit more that we get it right. A 4-year-old girl in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, has died after her grandmother forced her to drink whiskey, police say. The girl's blood alcohol content was 0.680, a lethal dosage, according to the arrest warrant. A level of 0.25% can cause alcohol poisoning, and anything higher than 0.40 can lead to a coma or death, according to a University of Notre Dame chart. And then this story goes on to talk about the mother who was 28 and the grandmother who was 53. They were booked, but the grandmother had caught the little girl drinking from a Canadian Mist bottle that was on the counter. And so she forced the little girl to consume the remainder of the bottle, which was possibly over half full, while on her knees in the hallway. The mother was present and didn't try to intervene, and she didn't seek medical help until the girl stopped breathing. It hurts my heart in so many ways because, one, this angel was from our community, as were the mother and grandmother. And so we need to start thinking about some of the things that we, as a community of caregivers, may hold over from generations past that are inappropriate. Now, we've already done a cast on corporal punishment. So I don't want to revisit that there, even though two of us really don't believe in corporal punishment under any circumstances, and one of us still, has her reasons for it. So I don't want to revisit that there. But there are other things that we have done that further traumatizes or maybe even kills our children that we need to start thinking about. Washing one's mouth out with soap, forcing a child caught with cigarettes to keep smoking until they become ill, or consuming other things until they become ill to teach them a lesson. Uh, Spanking them for wetting the bed or wetting their pants when they're little. Sisters, I'm heartbroken, and I know you all are too. What do we want to say to our community to say, you know what? Hurting our children, trying to teach them a lesson because we're killing them or we're just severely injuring them.
Some of this comes from the fact that
You've got an echo. You might have another window open on your computer.
Is that better?
No.
Is that better?
That's better.
Yeah. Okay. I want to address the fact that a lot of these inappropriate behaviors that parents or even teachers practice comes from a place of, I'm going to teach you not to ever do this again. That's silly. We all sin over and over and over. We all do stuff over and over and wish we hadn't, say we're sorry, try to do better the next time. But I think it comes from a place of a mentality that I'm going to make it so that you will never repeat this offense again. And in terms of inappropriate type of punishment that people do. I will give an example, for instance, of we were talking about this just a few minutes ago, in which my husband said he was a little kid, maybe third or fourth grade. He had done his homework. His mother had actually done it with him. So he knew he had it when he left home, but he lost it on the way to school. And when he got to school, he told the teacher that he really had done his homework, but now he thinks he lost it. He couldn't find it. His teacher made him wear a sign that said, "I did not do my homework and I lied to my teacher about it." And she made him wear this around his neck all day, told him, "You wear this sign home." So, he didn't even think, "Oh, I could take this off." But he wore it home. His mother saw that and she was livid. And she wrote a note to his teacher, really scolding her really strongly. And he said, "It's probably in my permanent record today."
There really isn't a permanent record for boomers.
But that was a little bit of overkill. That goes in the thing where they would make kids wear a dunce cap and all these kind of things that destroy a child's spirit. You are not training them to do the right thing. I remember even when I was in school, someone had clapped, and the teacher, who by the way knew who had clapped, she wanted the child to admit that he was the one who had clapped. And so she said to everyone, "We're going to stay after school until whoever did this admits that they have done it." So then immediately girls start crying and all this, you have this mess that starts. And really, we had 15 minutes before school, knowing this now as an adult, we had 15 minutes left before school was going to be over. But just the fact that she's saying, "I'm making everybody stay after school until whoever claps, clapped." And then later, when I told Mama about this, and Mama had to have some words with this teacher, and the teacher told Mama, "Well, I knew it was Carl, but I wanted him to admit that he had clapped." And she did this like a couple of times. I don't even know if it was Carl all the time, but it was like crazy stuff where either parents or teachers, they will punish everybody. We had a fifth grade, no, I had an eighth grade teacher who would make everyone write punishment, write out these big long paragraphs because some little group was talking, but we were all going to get it. What do you think about that, Naima?
I see us making a lot of stupid mistakes because the people before us made stupid mistakes.
Yes.
And the only way to get wisdom is to admit when you've made a stupid mistake. One of the things that I've been working on with a global peace organization, they have a school, they've established schools across the world, really, called peace schools. And these are basically teaching young people how to interact in a way that is geared toward compassion and conflict resolution. Well, one of the things we realize is that you can't really, well, as the saying is, you can't teach what you don't know and you can't lead where you don't go. So adults who are doing really abusive things, trying to get children to behave, they can't teach a course like that. So what we've first established is a parenting class called Parenting with Peace. And it changes the whole perspective of why you're doing things. We have this belief that we're supposed to make a child behave, and if they don't, they've disrespected us, and we're going to teach them a lesson. And all of this is inappropriate in terms of the way we see a child. Children don't have all these devious plans to disrespect us or be defiant and all that. They're just children. They're trying to figure out stuff. They're curious.
Yes.
And we project our adult intentions on them, and then that's where we end up with these punishments. I mean, like washing your mouth out with soap. Now look, a child's going to repeat whatever words you say, and the more you say those words, "Oh, that sounds cool, let me say that." So you say a word and the child repeats a word, and since in your adult mind you have defined it as a cuss word, "Oh, I'm going to teach you not to say that word. I'm going to wash your mouth out with soap," which, hey, what do you know is in soap? It could be something poisonous.
Poison is in
Yeah.
soap.
It doesn't go into your in your mouth. It goes on your body, on your skin, and so you do something that could be potentially fatal. Because what if they swallow it? Because your adult mind is saying they have done wrong, they've sinned. This whole idea of sin, we even have to revisit that, because that is a concoction of human beings. It doesn't exist. People do things out of ignorance, but a child does not have these devious plans. When they do things, they're simply curious and trying to learn. So if we look at it that way, then we respond differently, as opposed to thinking this is something they should be punished for. Why don't we teach them? So if alcohol is something a child shouldn't have, then rather than having them drink until they get sick and ultimately dying of alcohol poisoning, we simply we can either not drink it in their presence, or explain to them that it could make them very sick and take it away so that they don't have access to it. We can
And
explain
explain to
why.
them. Yes,
This
explain
is
to
for
them.
adults. This isn't for children.
We do
Even
not.
more than that. Even more than that.
Yes.
If it's something because your body would not be able to handle it, it could kill you.
Right. Right.
You have to be able to explain things in a way. Just like that's like saying what the child says, why? And you say, because I said so. That's not an explanation.
That's only after they ask for the 15th time of why. But,
Well, you have already answered.
Yes, but really, the thing is, and I'm sure that this happens in a lot of communities, but I'm speaking to us because of our Black community, because we have adopted the slave mentality of not wanting to explain anything. You know what? Massa is not going to sell your children. So you do not have to beat your children into submission, because you're going to be, because if you don't obey, somebody is going to take you away from them. And this was not even our culture. I read that our culture from the motherland was that when you beat your children and you hurt your children, you kill the spirit that God gave them. That is so that whole beating thing, that's from Europe. We ain't do that. We only started doing that and taking pride in doing that when we came over here. But there was a reason when we started it, because we were trying to protect them. But we don't, you know what? We don't need to keep doing that, because massa is not going to sell our children.
We need a reason to stop.
And we need to stop, and take the 30 seconds that it takes to explain something to your child the way you would want it explained to you. If you got something wrong at work, and maybe you had been taught that before, but there's a learning curve and you had messed up again. If your boss suddenly came out and started whacking you, that person would be in jail. So this is the thing, is that we have to start thinking about the inappropriateness of punishing a child for being a child.
And one of the most important things, I think, and I learned this as a teacher in BSF, Bible Study Fellowship, we practice what is called redemptive discipline, where you are not doing things or saying things to a child in order to punish, but it is to train. For instance, if you have a child that is acting out in the class and they're not listening, when you speak to them, it's more like, oh, thank you for sitting in your seat and having your feet on the floor. And you will compliment maybe another child who is doing the right thing. That kind of thing passes down. What you are trying to do, and I remember a book called Shepherding a Child's Heart by Ted Tripp, talks about the spirit of the child and redeeming that child through things that will explain why certain behaviors it isn't about really behavior modification. I know parents want their kids to do right and obey, but part of learning how to train a child goes more into teaching them, showing them, living out that kind of right behavior. I also learned, and this is when I was a young parent, that it was inappropriate if your child threw themselves on the ground, say you're in a public place, or maybe even you're at home, and throws a major fit. Anybody from two down will do that. It is
Tantrum.
wrong to say to your child, if you don't stop, I'm going to leave you, and then walk away like you're going to leave them.
Right. What happens if they get
Don't,
kidnapped?
don't do well. It's even worse than that. You instill
Yeah.
a thing of fear in your child
Right.
that you are going to leave them.
Right.
So, and it takes, I would say it takes many years to learn how to deal with children who are very strong-willed, but you're wanting not to break their will. You want to train them, and you want to do it deliberately by kindness, by softness. There are other ways of helping a child to learn the things that are right. And there is an appropriateness for every age. Say, for instance, you want your child to have a timeout. Okay, if they are 5 years old, 5 minutes is about long enough. Give them a book. Don't have them like sitting in a corner for an hour. That's not right. You
Well,
know,
you've had
there are just different ways of teaching children how to be compliant toward ways that are helpful and not being beastly.
And this is the thing. I think a lot of times we want our children, and I'm saying in our community, we want our children to fear us.
well,
And
that's the thought.
I you know what?
Yeah.
I never want, because if you start about fearing, when they have a problem, they won't come to you because they're afraid. You
Yes.
have to give them the confidence that you're there, because you know what? You're the parent. You're supposed to be taking care of them. I remember one of the things, and it stuck with me, even though I was just never a big one with temper with Sarah anyway, because I'd wait a long time to have that little girl, and she'll tell you she's spoiled. She knows she is. And spoiled kids are
Can't
love
spoil a
kids.
child. You can only spoil meat.
Yes. Yes, but you know what? I always say yes, she's spoiled, but you know what? She was loved, and she always has known she was loved. But I remember Mama saying when I was potty training, and anybody knows the worst time is potty training because they're in between, and you're constantly, do you have to go? Do you have to go? But Mama said, you know what? When they wet the bed or something like that, don't make a big deal of it.
Right.
And
Right.
Mama was not was hard on all of us.
But some of those things that she was sensitive, and that was the thing.
She got, and that was the thing. And I remember that. And I remember, okay, you wet your pants or you pooed your pants or whatever. But it was like, okay,
Don't
you made a
humiliate.
mistake. And a lot of times it's just your body. You're just getting used to your body and being able to hold it, or to be, or to stay dry all night. And don't make a big deal out of it. And every time I hear a story about some child who wet the bed and the parent beat them to death because they were so aggravated, you know what? You put the plastic sheet on. Then
Mm-hmm.
you put the other sheet on, the regular sheet. Then you put another plastic sheet on, and then another one over that. So in the middle of the night, you pull off that first two layers and go back to bed. Clean them
Yeah.
up, go back to bed.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And don't make a big deal out of it, because they're not trying to spite you. And we do this.
Yes.
We say that animals will pee for spite or something like that. Animals that have anxiety will pee, or
It's
or
the
maybe
same
they have, or
thing.
maybe they have something else going on, or maybe it's a medical condition. And we say the same thing to our children. Oh, that she just doing that to spite me. Well, you know what? They're
Yeah,
anxious.
no.
And we
Yeah.
have a whole generation of of people who are growing up with anxiety and mental health issues
Yes.
because we have traumatized them from a
Yes.
small,
From a
from the
young
time
age.
they were little, by smacking them across the mouth if they say something, washing their mouths out, spanking them, making them drink alcohol, making them do this, instead of saying, you know what, you don't do this because, and use that because. You've been on this earth longer than them. You're smarter than them, allegedly, and you know things, and you know the reason why things are wrong. So tell them. Tell them. Their brains are developing and they will understand. But if you start out doing something that I'm going to teach them a lesson this one time, then they're never going to do this again. Well, that
Right.
poor baby is never going to drink again because she is dead. And was
Mhm.
that worth it? And the mother saying, well, I messed up. You know, well, yeah, you sat there and let your mother murder your child.
Mm.
There
And
were probably other issues involved in that because I was so upset hearing about that story myself. And I just thought, that was an unthinking person.
yeah, they both were. They both were. And that's revisiting whatever trauma that was. Well, that's God. And there are no taking back of that. So we have to, take a step back and think, because if you chose to raise a child, rear that child, and sometimes you're going to get someone who's really strong-willed. Well, good, you got a leader on your hand. Now let's go
Yeah.
and see how you're going to, get that leader reared up so that he or she is able to uh, take that energy that they have and use it for good, instead
That's
of
right.
you trying to
And
break them down.
Right. Well, like you.
I think people are not thinking about making the punishment fit the crime.
Right.
You are not going to, okay, say you have a child, they disobeyed. What, you're going to isolate them from all their friends for a month? Well, how is that working for you? I mean, especially if you make these major claims, you are grounded for a month or a year or until
Right.
21,
Right.
and yeah, we say those things in our vexation, of course, but we need to make whatever we're doing not go beyond what is right, what is normal,
And
what
Well,
is
sometimes, you know what?
acceptable,
but when
what
you
is
think about it,
sensible.
everything that is done is not necessarily a crime or an intentional wrong, because like a child forgets something, like what was it when Eric forgot his or lost the homework.
Lost his homework.
Sometimes you might forget it at home, or you lose your coat, you forget, an article of clothing. Everything a child does is not a willful act of disobedience, and a lot of times parents will punish a child for losing something. I mean, I don't know how many times I lost my purse when I'm like 5, 6, 7 years old. What would I need with a purse for? Of course I'm gonna lose it. The purse has no relevance. I'm
Right.
carrying this thing for what? So yeah, I lost a lot of purses. And children will lose things because their mind is on something else. A lot of times parents will end up punishing you as a child because, again, they're projecting their adult ideas and intentions on it. Just like the whole wetting the pants thing. Oh, they're doing it out of spite. Nobody wets their pants out of spite. That's not a good feeling, to be in wet pants. Why would you do
No.
that to yourself? Nobody does that. So just the ideas that we have, and it really comes down to the adult having low self-esteem. When you need to make somebody fear you, what is that? That's when you feel powerless somewhere else in your life. So let's
Absolutely.
say you got a supervisor or an employer that demeans you at work. You feel powerless, so you go home and pick on this child, and you want them to fear you because you can't make somebody else fear you. And that's all that is. Why would you need a child to fear you? And like you say, if they fear you, they don't trust you, they're not going to confide in you. Things are going to happen that you should know about. They won't tell you because they're afraid of punishment. I mean, how many
And
children?
predators will use that too.
Yes,
Predators will use
that's
that
what they do.
fear that you have of your parents by saying,
They're
okay,
not going to believe you. They're going
if
to
you
punish
do this, they're not going to believe you and you're going to be in trouble.
And don't
right.
Well,
tell.
if
Yeah.
you have already told your child, if anybody touches you inappropriate or says something that makes you feel uncomfortable, come to me. I
Yeah,
will not be angry. I don't care who it is. But if
right.
you've already been groomed and that predator can tell you, well, you're going to be in trouble if you tell this secret, you're not going to tell them, because all you know from mom and dad is anger when you've done something wrong.
Yeah,
Yes. And I
that's
think another thing that parents need to take into account is the age of the child. Now, this is
Yes.
something I learned in art class. I was taking a teaching art class, and the first thing the teacher did was he took out the box of crayons and he broke them all up. And he said, now parents will get mad when kids break up the crayons, but the reason they do that is because it is easier for them to grasp them if they're small. These long little crayons are very difficult for them. So he says, I always break up all the crayons so all the kids are comfortable with using the crayons. I thought, that's something interesting. And then the other thing is, when parents will get after kids for spilling the milk, like they knocked it over
on purpose.
Children are just
always going to be
not dexterous enough to be
Right.
able to handle a big thing of milk. And I learned at an early age, even before I had kids, I don't fill the cup up to the top with milk. I put this much in a cup this big. And then if they want more, they can ask more. If they knock it over and spill it, I know it's because children are naturally clumsy. They didn't knock the milk over on purpose. People get upset and say, you wasted the milk. You know, I've heard this so much. But if you understand, number one, the age of your child, their ability to handle and maneuver things, because you know, a 2-year-old is different from a 5-year-old, is different from a 7-year-old, is different from an 8-year-old, is different from a 9-year-old. As they are slowly developing, they become more able to
That's all it is.
Things.
That's all it
but
is.
Oh, and listen,
this is going to blow up over those kind of things. You're already at a place where you're not even understanding that this is not a thing where you're going to get after your child for being naughty. They're just being a child.
Well, this is the thing. The bonus thing about this with the spilled milk, Barbara, is that you find that every time you sit down at a table and somebody else, you know, puts their cup on the edge, you will automatically, that mama thing will come, and you will automatically don't you do it? You automatically move it closer. Move it because you know your mama instinct is still in there.
Yeah,
it could be your husband, it could be anybody, and as soon as they put it near the edge, you get nervous and you move it.
Yeah, that's the automatic. We gotta go, but we want to remind you all to make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, 3 Black Moms, and follow us and like us on Facebook, 3 Black Moms. And think about what you heard today. If you have been punishing behavior that really is not punishable, if you've been doing inappropriate things to your child, well, you can't take back what you did, but you can not do it anymore. So just think before you
count to 10. Count to 10. And if you have a teenager, maybe you're going to like ground them for the rest of their natural life. You know, you can say, you know what, I'm really angry right now. I don't know what your punishment is going to be. Get out of my sight for a little bit, and we'll talk about it when I have calmed down.
And maybe you can just ask them why they did what they did, because you might be assuming something. So if they have the ability to speak, like if they're age 3 or older, they can explain, then just listen first before you respond.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because we've all been perfect and we've never made any of these mistakes.
Yeah. We've never done any of those.
Well, we gotta go. Make sure that you leave your comments and let us know what you think. I'm Naima.
I'm Cheryl.
I'm Barbara. We are 3 Black Moms. I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're 3 Black Moms.